Hey, we are joined now with Howard Russ of Beavercreek High School in Ohio. He's been a head cross-country coach for 22 years, 13 at Beavercreek. His women's team has had top 5 finishes at the state meet 8 of the last 9 years. They were the state champions in 2018 and 2019, runner-up in 2011 and 13, and third place in 2012 and 14. So a tremendous record of success recently. They were at Nike Nationals in the fall of 2019, led by individual Taylor Ewert, who was a 2-time state champion in cross and Nike Cross All-American 3 times, finishing 3rd in 2018, 2nd in 2019, a 2-year Foot Locker All-American, national champion 2 times in the steeplechase, 2020 Gatorade Track and Field Athlete of the Year. That was for the United States, correct, Coach?
Right, that's correct.
And Arkansas. And also, you had Savannah Rock, state runner-up in cross-country in 2019, winner of the McQuaid Invitational, a big, tough invite, all-state 5 times in cross-country and track, and she'll be running at Syracuse. Just numerous all-state athletes. And in the last 5 years, 4x8 national runner-up for the girls, distance medley, 2nd place at Penn. And these times in the 4x8, 8:58, 9:01, 9:16, and 9:14. I think only Greg and Chris here have times close to that in the state of Kansas ever. Greg, Chris, what were your times for a couple years ago?
We were 9:19.
9:19 and
We were 9:23, I think.
so all your top time of the last 4 years all would be state, all class records in the state of Kansas. Anyway, Coach, so thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to have you with us. Let's start by just telling the audience a little bit about yourself, your background in running, and how you became a coach.
Oh, okay. All right. So my background was a little bit different than a lot of runners, going in. I started running when I got cut from 7th grade basketball team, and I was a little bit overweight. And I was like, I got to start running to get in shape, because that's what it was. The middle school basketball coach was also the cross country coach. And so I started running that summer, lost a bunch of weight, and then made 8th grade basketball. But I had some friends going out for cross country in high school, but I decided I wanted to go the golfing, baseball, and basketball route. So I did those things. I went to a small school called Triway High School, competed with those things, but still did some road races in the summer. I went to college at Bowling Green State University and wasn't competing anymore. And I'm like, there was triathlons going on. I'm like, I could do that. And started competing in triathlons all throughout my time at Bowling Green, started to do road races and started to do really well. So when I got into teaching in 1997, I moved to around Dayton, Ohio, a suburb called Huber Heights, Wayne, and they had a middle school cross-country job opening. And I'm like, well, I could coach that. I had some friends, so I did that for 1 year in middle school. We won. We were really successful. They're like, hey, why don't you coach middle school track? Okay. So I coached track. Then the high school cross-country coach quit that year, and then I became the head high school cross-country coach 1997, 1998 at Wayne. Did that for about 7 or 8 years. We were pretty successful. Took a couple years off, started teaching in the Beavercreek School District. And then I was the middle school AD. I was really missing coaching. And Jack Holliday was like a legend. He had coached at Beavercreek like 30 years, had 1 state championship, I think in 96. He retired, kind of got the bug. I'm like, dear, I got 3 daughters. I'd really like to get back into coaching. And so I got back in 2008, and I've been doing it ever since. So it's been great to be at Beavercreek. I teach middle school social studies. So it's a great spot for me, because everyone in my classroom in the hallway looks like a cross-country runner to me. So it's the best place for me to recruit athletes. And so I've been at Beavercreek ever since 2008.
Awesome. Thanks. So our first topic is just dealing with the coronavirus and the pandemic. So when all this started to happen, things began to shut down back in March or April, depending on the state. How did that affect you personally? And then follow up, what did you do with your team throughout the rest of the spring?
Well, it was really tough. We did get our indoor state meet and track. We just made it through that. And it was really the next week, around March 12th, 13th, we found out that basically school was canceled and track was going to be canceled. We couldn't see our athletes. from there. So with having, I had a bunch of amazing seniors, Taylor Ewert, Savannah, Jody Pierce, who had been fourth in the state in the 800, and I have Jules Williams. We had plans of going after the 4x-mile national record. We thought we had a shot at that. We wanted to go back to Penn relays. We definitely wanted to get a 4x8 title, and then we had individual goals. And Taylor was trying to get ready for the Olympic trials and race walk as well. So we had all these different goals, and it just was kind of like, it was disheartening, but we always talk about control the controllables, and we didn't have control over it. So I met with the girls, because I only coached the girls during track season, distance runners. And we talked about, okay, what can we control? We can control our attitude. We can be in great shape. If this season happens, we're going to be ready. So we did a couple things. One, we created a Google Classroom that I could post workouts and things for them. We used Strava. I don't know if any of the other coaches use Strava app. Made sure they were all on Strava, and we've used it before. And then also I created a Google form that they would send me data and how they're feeling at the end of each week, which would help me create their workouts. And so what I basically did was we did our workouts every week as if we were still in the middle of track season. We didn't go to base for cross country. If it was supposed to be, we're supposed to run a Penn relays that day, we were going to do a workout that day. I wanted to keep everything the same because, one, we wanted to be ready if we did have a track season, like, because there was rumors we might just have postseason. Two, I found if athletes that don't do track but go right into cross country, they miss out on that speed element for running economy, and I didn't want them to miss out on that. And so we really kept it like a normal track season. I just could not see them from about March till the end of May. And I think we found out the beginning of May or so that the track season was officially canceled. And that was hard too. The senior girls, we had a group text. A lot of tears in that were shed because we had some unfinished business we really wanted to do and kind of end their career on the right notes. So.
Yeah, your team was loaded. That's a sad way for things to end for that group.
Right.
So from there, you had to move on, and we approached summer. What did the summer look like for you guys so far? Were you allowed to do some meeting in person? Have things been remote? And just what's it look like for you guys?
Okay, so I'm a pretty large team. Last year we had about 180 cross country runners. I've been as high as 200. And so we divide up our groups into what we call units. And there's about 5 or 6 girl units, 5 or 6 guy units, and I have 5 assistants. So what we did is we met with each of the units. We were allowed to kind of have a meeting, a small group meeting, and talk, especially to the leaders, what was expected, our training to be the same. We made sure everyone was on Strava, and that they were going to be required to do that. Made sure everyone was on Google Classroom. And then each of the coaches, if they wanted to do a Google form, because I assigned coaches, I found that, each unit or so needs their own coach. I kind of oversee it, but for me, it's kind of working with the varsity groups and making sure they're getting what they need. So made sure they understood what was expected of them, the leaders. And so we were allowed starting early June to meet with only 10 athletes at a time for 2 weeks. So during that time, I really didn't even meet with the kids for about a week or two, just send out workouts. And then after that, the state of Ohio said 50, but we had to take their temperature. So they gave me a little temperature gun, and they had to fill out a form that basically said they had no symptoms. And if they cleared that, then they could practice. So I would meet with, in June, I met with the varsity girls and varsity guys 1 day a week for a threshold workout. The other days were basically mileage or hill sprints, and they would put it on Strava. And then on the weekend, I would send out their Google form, and they would put in all their information. And then from that, I would either modify what their workouts would be for the next week. So I only met with them 1 day a week. The JV groups were meeting with their coaches 1 day a week as well. And then in July, I started meeting 2 days a week. We started doing 2 threshold workouts. Same thing, we had to test them. They have to wear a mask basically when they come in for check-in and when they're finished. And so I've got to meet with them twice a week. And then we are supposed to be allowed to start official practice starting next Monday. Oh. And so I just had a coaches meeting, kind of figuring it out, how we're going to set that up. But there's still a lot of unknown things going into the season based on the OHSAA, and then really waiting for the governor to make some decisions. So.
Hey, just a quick question that popped into my mind here.
Yeah.
As the runners are coming and going with a mask,
right?
Where do they leave it while they're running?
They have like their little sling bags, and okay. Because they have to bring their own water. And so they just lay it down. So basically they come in, I check them in. We go over what the purpose of the workout is, what are the goals of the workout. And then they put their stuff down and then they go do their warm up. And then when they're done with their cool down, they go grab their bag, they put their masks on, and then they leave. So.
If nothing, this pandemic has created coaches to be more creative and more organized. What is perhaps, and it sounds like you guys have done a lot of things to tackle this and done a really good job. What's the most creative or innovative thing you've come up with in the past 5 months to train or motivate or hold kids accountable?
Well, I think for cross country, we have what are considered our 4 whys of the program. Why does it exist? We want to teach kids life skills so they can be number one in life. Our standards are all about being number one in how we act, how we look, how we talk, being a number one teammate, and being number one the next 22 hours of the day. And those are things that take nothing but effort. So we had to come up with creative ways to kind of motivate kids. Kids need hope and they need things to shoot for. So we have our core values based on those why. And so one of ours is running the extra mile. So in June's always been about forming the habits of a champion. What do great runners do? And what do we need to do? And so I gave them a calendar for June. It's called the Extra Mile Challenge. And what it was is that they had to running, something with strength, something with nutrition, and then making their bed. They have to make their bed. It's just a habit of starting the day. I got that from a YouTube video. And then create one new habit. And with all those things, they had to do a little bit extra. So if they were supposed to run 5 miles, they can run 5 miles, 0.1, or they can run an extra 11 seconds. And just to get in that mindset, doing a little bit extra. If you're supposed to do 100 push-ups, do 102. And if they do all those things, if they do 4 out of 5 each day on their calendar, they get to put a star. And that's just right. And if they could fill up their calendar, I gave them, if you can do like 30 of the 31 days, then you'll earn a t-shirt. So the kids got into and I'd go on Strava, and if they did, they went the extra mile, I'd give them a little kudos. You can put little messages. I'd give them little stars. And the kids really got into that. So I tried to get them in a mindset of, hey, if coach wants me to do just a little bit extra, and they really got into that. And then units started to come up with their own ideas of going the extra mile. And then in July, instead of doing a mileage club, we've always called it Mojo July. And we use the word mojo as confidence, that if you put in a lot of work in July when no one's watching, that you're going to be successful. So the kids they have to do so many mojo miles, and that's running and cross training. So like 10 minutes on an exercise bike is equal to 1 minute of running, or 1 mile of running, excuse me. And so based on if you're a freshman through senior, you have so many miles you have to earn through the month of July. And the fun part is we do the same thing for parents. I give them a chance to earn a mojo shirt, which they really want to get, but they can do it through walking. So we have parents that are motivated. So it kind of creates this kind of family atmosphere of all these kids want to earn their mojo shirts. So those are a couple of things that we've been doing. I try to give them shirts. I put things on Strava, just little things to get them excited about training, because we don't know if we're going to get the race or we're not going to get the race.
It sounds like you've got a lot of good ideas going.
Coach, you mentioned having, which I love. I love this as a general message to any group of athletes that are competing in a sport, any level, about being successful in life. Going through, is there a specific example that sticks out to you that you have in your mind of someone that's been through the program that you're just over the top, just especially proud of for being that, setting an example of really living that out in their lives and continuing to do so as they've left your program?
Yeah, we have so many of our alumni that want to come back and kind of give to the program. And so I did once a week starting in May. I was doing Instagram Live interviews with former athletes who are now either running in college or they're out of college, and showing them how they're now being successful in life. I have a young lady named Bethany Lassen, and she was her freshman year. She was in our lowest group, but she found that she loved running, but and she worked her way up to her senior year. She was voted captain. She was the number 5 runner on our state team, and she's been really successful. Now, she could have ran at college. She goes to Miami of Ohio, and she's like, Coach, but her senior year, we really got into her strength training, and she fell in love with weightlifting. And so she went to college. Instead of running, she got into strength training. And now she's like this national power lifter. She's probably put on about 40 pounds of muscle. She's winning all these contests. She's back now. She's graduated. She's going to help a little bit with the strength routine. And so it was really cool for the girls. We did an interview, and I'm like, you know, she didn't become the elite runner, but she took the skills we learned in cross country and took that to what she found a passion for. And now she's doing it. She's running a gym. She's so happy. And so I tell the kids, you know, you use the sport of running. If you learn the skills of, you know, being dedicated, being, you know, doing all these different things, no matter what you choose, you can be successful. And she talked about that to the team. And that was really powerful. So I tried to get not just kids that like run in college, but kids that have taken, you know, those values that we want about hard work, going the extra mile, and now they're applying it to other things. And I had another athlete who's now basically our team's physical therapist and a running specialist, who was like my number 5 runner, not actually at Beavercreek, but at Wayne when I was back teaching. And now he works with the team, and he's been out for like 14 years. And he's like, this is the best time of your life. But he goes, I learned how to be successful, you know, being a great physical therapist, because he's known throughout the area as the best in the area because of what, you know, I learned through the sport of running. So I try to give those kids those examples. I mean, we have the Sydney Lears and some really good runners, but I want them to see that, you know, the skills you learn through cross country or track or just distance running in general is going to help you be successful in life. So.
Coach, kind of transitioning into training, you talked a little bit about some of the philosophies you guys have in the summertime. So talk a little about what you guys are doing presently, training-wise. What are you asking your kids to do to prep for, you know, what may be a fall cross-country season? And then how does that compare to what you guys have done previously? Same modifications, anything like that?
Pretty much our training's been the same. I do a lot of, we've always done a lot of threshold or you can call it tempo running, but it probably was Taylor's sophomore year. So I've met Joe Behill, got to talk, got to go to a conference, and I really like Joe Behill's kind of formula. So kind of modified. So we do one long run a week. And that depends on like freshmen. I have some freshman girls, their long run is I think it's up to 6 miles. It could be less. It just depends on the age. Usually Tuesdays are mileage with some short speed. We always try to touch speed by either strides, short sprints, or hill sprints. So Tuesdays, we do mileage, short speed, and they also do some cross training. Wednesdays are, now we do like what Behill would call an aerobic threshold. And we do that in longer intervals. My older girls right now are like doing 2x2 mile with a little break. My younger freshman girls are doing still 800s at that pace, but with shorter rest. Because I found like Joe wants aerobic threshold to be like up to 4 miles, but the girls, some of the guys could, but the girls couldn't handle 4 miles of continuous. So I give them a little break. And I found that works well. Thursdays are another mileage day with short hill sprints and more cross training. And then Friday, we meet early, we get on the track, and the kids like it. Sometimes we'll do it on gravel, but we do a 2 mile threshold. It's really fast. It's based on Joe Behill's formulas, kind of take what you think your current mile time is, not what your PR is, but where you think you are. So I kind of help the girls. You add 40 seconds and you double that. So that's a 2 mile continuous. And we do that, and it's almost like a time trial, and like Lydiard kind of calls for a time trial as well. But I found that workout, and we do that workout a lot all year long, is we can kind of gauge our fitness, and kids can see that they're really improving. So we do that on a Friday. If I have a freshman, like I have a really talented group of freshman girls that are in, I let them hop in the 2 mile threshold and maybe pace for an 800, then they hop out till I think they're ready to do a full one. So most of them have not done a full 2 mile yet. I let them pace maybe Jules, who's a little bit faster than my other girls. And then Saturday we do mileage or another cross training day. So that's pretty much, we've always kind of been doing that lately, and our guys are pretty much the same. A lot of threshold, but we're trying to do some sort of speed every single day as well.
Coach, you mentioned cross training several times there. It sounds like that's a consistent part of your program.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more maybe about what specifically you do for cross training? Is that early season? Do you do that all through the season? Is that
Yes.
specifically for injury prevention, those kinds of things?
And it depends on the kid. So like right now, so our freshmen, the goal is 40 miles a week, girls, of combination of running and cross training. And so like right now I have my freshman girls are all somewhere between 18 and I don't think anywhere at 30 miles, maybe 28. They need to get their other 12 to 14 miles at least through cross training. And what I count for every 10 minutes of exercise bike, elliptical, anything that is a spinning bike that they can get their heart rate up, I count at 10 minutes. So 40-minute exercise bike is what I call mojo miles, or 4 miles of training. Now, if they do just go for a bike ride, they're not going to get their heart rate up as much. So I tell them they got to do at least 12 minutes for that. If they do swimming, I count yardage as miles. So I kind of let them choose what they really like and what they have. We do have, it's been hard with COVID, we have a set of spinning bikes, and we have a shed by the school that we keep them in, that we have for preventative. But we usually have them cross training. So some of our kids are cross training, 4 or 5 days a week to supplement. Some of them only do a couple days a week because they're getting in their mileage. So I kind of let them tell me what they like, because I have some swimmers on the team, and so they like to swim. So we talk about, though, getting their heart rate up and those things, and I found that really helps. And because mileage differs, like Taylor and Savannah were got up to 50 miles a week, but Julianne, who will be my #1 runner this year, she was 9th at the state meet last year, one of the top returners. She's never been over 40 miles, and I don't see her. She's right now around 35 or so. So we might get her up to 40, but I found she has a lot of speed, that she can get the extra bang for her buck instead of going up to 50 miles, because she seems to get a little nicked up a little bit. So I found that cross training helps. So I think you have to individualize as much as possible. So.
Coach, you mentioned a proposed start date for cross country.
Yes.
Does Ohio have a plan in set? Will it look like altered meets and size, or is it all speculation still? What's cross country look like in Ohio this fall as of right now?
So what it seems to change daily, and our my AD's Brad Pumpas does a great job of kind of letting us know what's going on. So we've been given that we can start practice August 1, but cross country, along with both guys and girls soccer and football, are considered contact sports. So we are not permitted to race yet. Tennis, golf, they can get started, and they'll actually have their competitions going. We just got an email that is, they're trying to change that we're not a contact sport. There is we have a new state meet course this year in Columbus. So our Coaches Association always puts on the first meet of the year on the state course so you can get a feel for it. So usually we don't run at it, but with a new course, and my kids are itching to race. They haven't raced since basically, February or March. That we were going to go to it, which is August 15th, which is 2 weeks from Saturday. But if the governor does not change that, then we will not be allowed to race. And then races, we've been told that they want races of under 100 athletes or less. They're going to have larger starting boxes. They've talked about wave starts. We don't know how that, they just say that, but they don't kind of give us ideas. Does that mean your team kind of runs as a pack and then another group starts 2 minutes later? Or there have been rumors that you could put your #1 and #2 in a race and all the teams would do that. Then your 3, 4, and 5. So we've heard all kinds of things, but there's nothing concrete. So we might start racing August 15th. It could be delayed. I've seen what California is like. There's in the winter. I think some of the southern schools can do that. I don't think we could. It'd be fun to run in the snow, I guess. But the big thing with the kids is we want to compete. So kind of our league, our GWAC conference, Greater Western Ohio, our coaches have been talking. And if we are kind of limited, we've talked about creating even dual meets, like in the olden days of, we'll race different schools in the area until postseason. So my big thing is trying to find a way that we can compete. However that is I'll take it. But I don't think big invitationals are going to happen. And if they do, they're really going to have to be modified. So I've been contacting all kinds of different coach or meet directors, and they're like, we don't know yet. And so, and with us being such a big team, we're going to really have to divide up our team going into different meets. And I think it's going to be hard. I mean, we don't host a big meet, but we can host some smaller meets. We just don't have a park that can hold it. So trying to figure out, you know, how to get my team to race, it's going to be difficult. So we'll see what happens.
One more tough COVID question, and then I think we'll bring it back to training and some other lighter topics. Have you given any thought of what your message will be to your kids if the season were canceled? Have you thought that far ahead yet, or?
I have, and I haven't got. I'm going to address the whole team next week because I've seen different units, but I know at least the varsity units we've talked about. Okay, so worst case scenario, we don't have a season. What have we become with all this hard training? And so they've talked about, you know, we're in great shape. We have made the big thing is all these units, they've realized that they've taken ownership of their groups, and their training has been, I think we've had our best summer of training because the kids feel like it's their units. But I've told them we're going to find ways to compete. I mean, we've watched the Bowermans, you know, do their meets on the track. I'm like, we will find ways to show off our fitness. We put in all this work. If we have to do a virtual meet, where I've talked to a couple other coaches that, you know, use line up your guys, y'all line up mine if we want to go Instagram live, but we're going to find ways to compete and know if we're one of the better teams in the state. I said, we put in way too much work. So as long as we can keep practicing and I can see you and we can be together, we're going to be okay. We don't need a race to hit all our Y's of our program, but we're going to find ways for you to show that this fitness wasn't there. And so the kids have bought into that. We're trying to come up with creative ways. We're talking to other coaches, but we'll find ways for them to know that their workouts, because I don't want them to give up hope. And I'm like, at some point we're going to race again. And when we do, we're going to be ready to roll because they're just hungry. They just want to compete. So we'll find ways to compete. It might not be the normal way. It might be against each other where we create our own fantasy teams, but we'll compete. So, I mean, that's all you can do. Kids need hope. They need goals. And so, but it's tough because you see them put in all this work and they just want to go out and compete. So it's tough.
So, you talked about individualization and your emphasis on that, and all of the different things that you've done or that you'll do, just depending on the athlete. When you head into the end of a typical season, do you maintain that level of individualization when it comes to trying to construct what the term they use, a peak for each one of those athletes, or do you try to kind of take funnel all of the athletes that you know will be there at the end of the season into kind of back into one group, so you kind of all in by the end of the season you're doing one workout? Or how does a peak differ depending on the athlete in the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season for your program?
That's a great question. So what we do when we get past, usually we start, you have your league meet. In Ohio, you have your league meet, then you have districts, regional, state, and then we have Nike regionals, and then we hope Nike nationals. And Mondays, we pretty much do the same kind of workout. We try to simulate. V-Hill used to talk about doing time trials, like you do 3 by a mile, or you do 4 by a mile, 3 by a mile, or you do a time trial. And what we started doing is we simulate the first mile, mile and a half. What's the pace going to be at the state meet, the first mile of the race? And that's what we do. And then we'll do an 800 at mile pace, and then we do 4 or 5 200s, depending on how far we are out. And we kind of break that down. So Mondays are still pretty hard, and that's pretty much the same. The mileage might be different on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Usually a Thursday we'll go run the course. Wednesdays are different though. Like a Taylor or a Savannah, who's more of a bigger mileage, they love thresholds. We'll do something similar to a 2 mile threshold. We might only do a mile at threshold, and they might do some 200s. Where I have a Julianne Williams, who is more of a middle distance, and a Jody Pierce, they're more of a 1.8 mile. They do cross country, but they love speed. And we do hard 400s. So it kind of depends on what I think their strengths are. I want them to do their strengths. Like if I told, on Jules, we were doing a threshold, she'd be like, oh, that's terrible. I want to go fast. She goes, I want to go fast. So I let them go fast. And I do that as much as I can. And if I have any middle distance girls who have somehow fought in the cross country, I'll do that even differently. Like I have basically our 4x4. who I thought had a good chance of winning, are all running cross country. They've decided not to do soccer. And so I have to train them different. I know, it's so amazing. So I have to do less mileage, but our thresholds are different. But one day a week, we're doing really fast stuff. We'll do 3 or 4 200s at like 90%. And so they're like, Coach, I don't think I can do a 2 mile. So I have these 4 girls, and they're like, like, we're not distance runners. I'm like, well, let's go do a 2 mile. And they're like, oh, we'll run in the 40. I'm like, no watches. I'll get on the bike path and we'll just go. And I'm just going to ride your pace and we'll go. And they ran like 12:50. And they're like, oh my gosh, I just ran a minute and a half faster than I ever. And I'm like, yes, you're distance runners, see? And so I have to you have to trick the middle distance kids. But now they're like, I can do this. And so, but if we would have done like a time trial on the track, they would have been counting. But if I got them on the bike path, they had no idea. I'm like, you're going to run until I tell you to stop. It's going to be 2 miles. And so they PR'd, and now they're actually excited about doing longer thresholds. So I have to trick them. But I think you have to go to the strengths of your athlete. I knew what Taylor liked. I knew what Savannah liked. So one day a week, we did everything the same. But with that Wednesday, I kind of let them, wait, what do you feel like doing today? You got to give them some ownership. And it gives them a feeling that they can run their best in the big races.
So, Coach, you said you coached for a while, and you got out of it. You were a middle school athletic director. Is that correct?
Right.
Then you came back to coaching. So, in your second time around, what are you doing differently than you did the first time? Like training-wise, philosophy-wise, what are you doing different?
The big thing for me was philosophy. Was really, I read with Start with the Why, and I quit talking about winning championships. I quit saying, I want to beat, like, Centerville is our big ride. I quit talking about beating other teams. We talk about, first of all, them doing what it takes to become a champion, and that we don't worry about results, because it was all when you're young, I want to win trophies. I want to win championships. And I thought it put too much pressure on them. And I'm just like, I want you from point A to point B to be the best you can be. And so we started talking about core values, and we started doing more of, like, everyone has a role, and a lot of more team building. And we really stopped talking about, so I let the kids talk about goals, and they're like, we want to go to Nike Nash, and we want to do, this or that. And then we put that away, and then we come up with a plan. We talk about, all right, so if this is the level, then this is what it's going to take to go to that level. And so let's just be a champion each day. And we really just focus on, I tell them, can you be number 1 today? And a really simple thing is, as I said, you heard the number 1 a lot in our program. Was today a +1 or a -1? Did you give a lead effort where you can say it was a +1? And if you can add those up enough days, that you're going to be successful. And when I was younger, I thought they were supposed to peak in every race, and every race should get faster. And I learned, hey, you're going to get better through failure, but we need to learn from it. You either hit your goals, or what did you learn, and what are you going to do about it? And so I don't focus that much on winning races. We don't talk about winning championships. They can tell me those things. I said, I just need to know what level we want to train at, so that I know, and now let's just be great each day. So I think when you're young, you think it's all about the championships, but I want them more to focus on acting, talking, being a champion each day. And if we do those things, the results take care of themselves. And we've actually and it takes the pressure off them. And I'm like, just go out and race, whatever happens, happens. So, and that was my big thing, because in the beginning, I'm like, we got to win, we got to beat this team, I want championships. And when I came back, I'm like, that's not what it's all about. That's not what high school sports should be about. So,
Coach, up in Ohio, you mentioned indoor track. What's the winter like for you guys in Ohio? What does indoor track look like? What obstacles do you have to overcome? Do you have to get a lot of stuff done outside in the snow? Just a brief kind of rundown of what the winter's like for you guys in Ohio.
Yeah, so indoor, it's cold out, so we don't have near us, we have a 200-meter track. Cedarville University is probably 20, 25 minutes away, but we don't go train on. We do everything outside. If it's really cold, I always tell the kids to have there's a couple of rec centers in place that they have to, but we pretty much bundle up. And we're just base training and doing threshold, kind of almost we simulate the summer. And then indoor track, you get to choose like what beach you want to go to. Some you need qualifiers, but most of them you just need a qualifying time. And so in Ohio, they take the top 24 qualifying times in each event, and you're invited to the indoor state meet. But you want to try to find some tracks with 300 meter, because they don't care if it's a 200 or 300 meter, even though there's a big difference. So we usually try to take our top kids to the University of Kentucky to a really good meet. Most of the 300-meter tracks are in the northern part of the state, so we might go up we went up to Akron for a meet this year, just to get them a qualifying time. But we pretty much use it as base. I don't really worry about indoor. If we do well at the state meet, that's great. I mean, Taylor won the mile and 2 mile. So indoor is just more for fun that they get to run in some races. But the indoor state meet was, as I said, the last thing we got to compete at this year. But it's kind of low key. So it depends on certain schools don't run it at all. So it's how much, but we don't like do a bunch of speed work or anything, just more than normal than we do in the summer. So it's up to you on how much we want to do, but it's fun. I think getting on an indoor track is fun. So.
And the indoor state meet is run by your state activity association?
Our coach, it's not run by the OHSA, it's run by our coaching association.
Okay, that's cool. That's a nice place.
It's not an OHSA sport.
Gotcha.
So it's run by our coaches association.
Okay, well, we are what we call the home stretch now. So we're just going to pepper you with a few quick questions, some kind of fun, some kind of about running, whatever. Here's my first one. It's been a wild summer and spring. Did you happen to catch and binge anything exciting on Hulu or Netflix or whatever this summer?
But my daughters laughed at me. I was so into sports, and I'm always trying to watch what makes great teams great because I think you can find a pattern. So I found on Amazon Prime, I watched about the All Blacks rugby team. Fascinating. Then I read their book Legacy, an amazing book. And then I learned about Australian cricket. I knew nothing about cricket. And so I watched this Australian cricket because I think you can see great sports, no matter what, great organizations have a similar theme in their culture. And so, I mean, I picked up some stuff with that I can use, and I can say, hey, we do those kind of things too. So those were two of the things I watched.
Well, that's cool.
And Mandalorian too. I love Baby Yoda.
You talked for a minute about tempo runs. Talked about being kind of a student of V-Hill. Quickly, how do you describe briefly a tempo or a threshold? What's your definition of that?
Sure. So there's so many different formulas. I think there's a lot of them are right. So Joe Behill talks about aerobic threshold as he goes off a mile. A lot of people go off 5K. He goes off a mile. So I use his. So aerobic threshold is take whatever you can run the mile in right now and add 1 minute. So if like Julianne is in about 5-minute mile shape. We've done some time trials and things. So she is doing her 2x2 mile thresholds around 12 minutes for 2 miles or 6-minute pace. And we try to do 4 miles worth. If they're not strong enough to do 2x2 mile, then they do 4x1 mile. If they're younger, like a freshman or sophomore, they might only do 3 miles. So that's our aerobic threshold. I would love for them to be able to go continuous. I've had Taylor could do it, and Savannah. They're the only two that I've ever had that could go 4 and really hold it. And B-Hill says you can make it go 5 or 6 miles, but that's more for, college and adults. We stop at 4, and my younger kids get up to 3. And then for Fridays, our lactic threshold is 40 seconds. So once again, Jules this past weekend or Friday, and we do it at 6 a.m. Our theme is winning in the dark. You guys want to read a really good book, Winning in the Dark just came out, Joshua Metcalf. It's a story about a tightrope walker. It's all over my dad, got cut from soccer, and winning in the dark means what you do while no one's watching, kind of what the kids are doing. And our whole theme is based on it. I have my kids, we're doing book talks. It's an amazing book. It's an easy read and your kids will love it. But anyway, we do our thresholds at 6 a.m. because I want them to do it. We had fog last week. It was beautiful. It was dark. And I'm like, there's nobody out here doing what you're doing. And they get excited for this 2-mile threshold. And so, as I said, Jules is around 5-minute pace. So if you add 40 seconds, 40 to 45, she should go at about 11:20 to 11, which is really fast. But that's what Beal says, and she ran exactly 11:20 this week. And we can kind of base on what like Taylor's run in Savannah, what kind of shape they're in. And the cool thing is like my girls last year who were about 20 flat, 1950, they are already a minute and a half faster. They were running this time last year around 14 minutes for these. They are now running 12:40. I have like 13 girls who are doing this in the 12s right now. And so they're like, oh my gosh, Kendall Hobbs, who went 19:05, was running this same time in October. So they're getting confidence to do this run. I found that if they can see where they need more than anything, it's mental, but if they can push through, and it's nice that it's 2 mile because I think when you always do repeats, you can quit. It's that little voice in your head. But the 2 mile really makes you focus, but it's done quick enough that even during the season, we do those on a Thursday all the way up to our league meet, and you're recovered by a Saturday. And if you would ask like a Taylor Ewert, she would tell you she runs races. She gets out the first mile, gets out, gets her position, and the last 2 miles feels like her 2 mile threshold run. So I think it really helps our kids. It's almost a time trial, but since it's so short, they can recover. And then we usually do some like 200s or barefoot strides afterwards. So, and we do those all throughout the year. And it's the simplest workout, but I found it's the most effective. And then what's nice if we do it on a track is I can hop in every once in a while. If I see a gap hopping in, the old man can get out there, start moving. And so it's our favorite workout. It's so simple, but we've seen the most progress. And now for the boys, though, we do a 3 mile. I found that they can handle an extra mile, and Jimmy Weckesser really works with our guys. He's the head track coach. He's been a head cross-country coach. So he does more with the guys, and he has them going up to 3 miles on those, but they give them a lot of confidence. So that's how we do thresholds. So sorry for the long answer.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Great answer.
That's great. Just kind of the piggybacking off that, you talked about, how do you know when a kid is ready? You talked about your top girl running like 11, 20 or whatever. So is that kind of a marker of, okay, now we're ready to make this
Yes.
step into this next level, or hey, we're going to hold it here for a little bit of time, and then
Well, I kind of let them go by feel, but like if I know that like Jules last year, she's 11:20 is her PR for that kind of workout. And so basically if she's running that, I think she is in, mid to low 18 shape right now for a 5K. So we have kind of markers based on where they're. It doesn't always work, but the kids kind of feel like if they're at this kind of shape. So I kind of let them go by feel. So our goal for those girls right now that are at 12:40, by the time the end of the year, 12. So we're trying to, I always tell them, like, can we cut, 4 to 5 seconds off per week as we're building. So, and that's like less than a second a lap. So we're trying to get faster. Not every week will they be able to do that. Or if we go run in a different location, or if we go out on grass. I found doing it on the track, some people don't like doing track and cross country, but I found that workout, I watch a lot of the elites, they get on the track. So one day a week, we love doing the threshold on the track, and we usually do it in the morning. As I said, during the season, we do it on a Thursday morning before school instead of after school, so they have a little bit more recovery before Saturday meet. And it's fun. They get so excited for it. It's their favorite workout of the week. And so the goal is how many girls can we get under 13? And one girl's like at 13:02. And the girls keep going, well, you're going to get in our pack and we'll pull you through. And so they start learning to work as packs. And you kind of just sit back and smile because they're doing everything that you want. So it's such a simple workout, but it's really, I think, it helps the kids mentally and physically.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure. So another, just kind of very brief question. So there are, a ton of just amazing, races throughout history that, are available on YouTube or whatever. What is one race that you could show your athletes if that were the only race that they would see? What one race throughout history would you show them?
Well, oh my goodness. Gosh. We watch races. Actually, I like showing them the Roger Bannister when he breaks the 4-minute mile, because it's a belief thing. And the biggest thing with kids is they have to believe. I always talk to them. I'm like, what do you think if you train your absolute hardest? And they give me a thing. I'm like, well, it's my job to get you past that. And I'm like, as soon as Roger, everyone thought, you were going to die if you broke the 4-minute mile. So I showed them that video. But as soon as he did, how many people were able afterwards? So I think it's a big thing with kids is belief. Kids are, you need to get that Carol Dweck growth mindset. And so you might be this person now, but if you love this sport, where can you be in 4 years? I'm always like, I want to find out, don't you? Aren't you curious if you go all in, you're going to fail? You have to have a way to let them understand how failure works, and that they're going to fail numerous times. But Roger Bannister's video is great for them because it's just a belief thing. I'm like, as soon as it happens, everyone thinks they can do it. So that's probably the one I've shown, but there are so many good races out there that my girls love watching. Anything the Bowerman Babes do, they're watching. They love, like Shalene and all those things. But I think kids need that belief that it's possible. that they can do things. So that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you.
All right, Coach. You won't need to think nearly as hard for this one. You mentioned you started getting into Australian cricket. If you had one match to watch, I think they call it a test match between Australia and another country. What country would you like to see? You felt like it would just be an absolute, just knockdown, drag
Oh, it's
out.
England. England's their rival. They have to beat the English. That's when they go crazy. But the matches last for like days, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. And they have like throwers and rollers, and I don't understand all the rules, but I know at England's who they got to beat though. And so it was a fascinating sport. I'm like, I don't think I could ever play, but you know, you got to have that rival. You got to beat the English. Got to beat the English.
Coach, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, sharing your time. I'm sorry we didn't get to have the Heartland Distance Summit this summer, but we're hoping to be back in full force in 2021, and we'd love to have you with us then again if you can make it.
I would love to.
Speakers. And but thanks again, man. We had a blast today, and good luck this season, and stay safe.
Thank you so much, guys. So good meeting you. Hopefully we'll be in a race someday. We're always traveling, but I'll come out if you guys need me for anything. Just let me know. It was an awesome time. So thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank
Coach.
you.